overseas play. In fact, no player has been a success. But I'll say this. Callum Watkins leaves Super League probably going down in my mind as one of the greatest talents, sort of with the physical attributes that we've seen in the competition. He doesn't go being one of the greatest players, and maybe not even one of the greatest centres, just because there's always been that nagging sense of there's still been something he needed to work on in his game. And when he put it all together was when he was part of a bad Leeds team that had lost everyone else, and then he got injured. So I really hope that he does well in the NRL. That's my take on Callum Watkins going to the NRL. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't write him off and say he's going to be a reserve grader at all, because I don't think the Titans are exactly blessed at centre anyway. So to me, I'd see him fitting back hopefully more into a centre rather than a second rower. It's good. Last few weeks he's had practice playing in front of some empty seats, because he's certainly going to get plenty of chance with that over at the Titans. But no, I mean, seriously, I think he deserves a chance, and I think it's a fresh start, kind of out of the spotlight of Leeds is probably the best thing for him. And I think the Titans as a choice of club is not a bad one, in the sense that as you say, there's not a huge amount of pressure or general profile on them, is there? So you can kind of, it's not that dissimilar really to the Canberra stuff. Yeah. It's not the Sydney kind of media stuff, is it? Or Brisbane or that kind of atmosphere.
And on the Gold Coast, you're probably close to a lot of distractions, but if you don't entertain those distractions, you won't become a news story.
No.
Yeah. So maybe keeps his head down, works hard, tries to do his talking on the field, and hopefully gets selected, because Joe Greenwood wasn't crap for the Titans and didn't get selected. Dan Sargentson got an injury after having only a few games, and some of those games weren't bad, and he just wasn't in the plans. So hopefully he gets a fair crack of the whip as well. Okay, yeah, what's next?
Yeah, not so good news, this one. So Wigan Warriors prop forward Talima Tautai, 31, has been banned from driving for 18 months and fined £1,200 after admitting nearly being twice over the legal alcohol limit. Tautai failed a roadside breath test early on the 26th of May. Wigan Magistrate Court heard the forward, who joined the Warriors in 2014, failed the breath test hours after he played against Warrington at the Magic weekend.
Yeah, Tom Andrews got in touch. He said, "Dear Wigan," why did I get you to read that one out? You read the first one anyway. Dear Wigan, we know we all have our dramas, but for fuck's sake, stop even beating us at being the most dramatic side. That's our trophy, and you have no right to it. Kind regards, Hull KR. Look,
yeah,
it's a bad look for our club. Speaking as a Wigan fan, it's disappointing. I was hopeful that we were past the off-field drama, and that things were starting to be addressed in that regard. So this story at this stage it is really disappointing, because at the start of the season there was so much crap going on off the field with the club, with the players, with the coaching situation, that it was hard to know what was happening where and when the next thing was going to let us down. But it had been like 2 whole months without a bad news story.
With 2 whole months without a drink driving conviction.
It's look, at 31, of all the players who've had these off-field indiscretions in the last 6 months, so since the Tompkins incident pretty much 12 months ago, this is a bloke who should know better than most of them all. This isn't some young guy who hasn't necessarily screwed his head on right. This is a family man, effectively, who's had previous run-ins with drink driving convictions a decade ago in Australia.
Oh, right. Didn't know that.
He's a player who needs to be working hard to earn a deal, if it not be with Wigan, then with someone else. And it's also someone who was looking to make his stay in the UK an extended one. and to be honest, is undone everything for himself by not getting a fucking taxi, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Taking a risk rather than taking a taxi. It's just it just winds me up.
Yes.
and like I say, he is the most mature of all the players that this has happened to. And I'm not saying that's necessarily an excuse for the other people, or I'm putting different expectations on Tauli Matautai because of that. But I think you should, to some extent, think someone like Craig Mullin or Gabe Hamlin, there's more understanding that if they fuck up, you give them a chance because they're young. How many times do you get everything right when you're a kid, even though you know what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing? It just seemed like everything was on the right track, and then someone goes and does this. It's very, very frustrating as a fan of the club.
Yeah, obviously it's fun to be, to have a laugh at Wigan and everything, but just a serious question here. So I'm right in thinking that he'd been ruled out of this game ruled out of the Warrington game because of a head knock, hadn't he? He'd come off for a
concussion, yeah.
Concussion assessment.
Yeah, he had. Yeah.
So you'd kind of think that there would be some kind of duty of care about, because obviously it's like that first 24-hour period is very, that's where there's, there may be caution about his, the long-term effects. You think that there would be some kind of support or some kind of policy that they take him home, they took him in bed, they kind of say, well, look, family here to monitor you, make sure that you're all right type stuff, rather than going out on the piss, which is obviously what he has done. Kind of thing?
I agree. I think that there's a point at which you say, how much can the club do to stop him from going out? But you don't know what the circumstances of him going out are. You don't. I would guess he was monitored and evaluated throughout the course of the match and then the post-match, because they have to keep doing the tests, don't they, to see when they, to see various stuff. I know that the Wigan club take this sort of stuff in terms of recuperation and stuff very, very seriously. I was at sort of a very premature show and tell, shall we say, of the new facility at Robin Park, when it was still very much being spaced out rather than kitted out at that stage. Building work was ongoing, but one of the things that I was told that Wigan had even investigated into was putting some sleeping pods within the facility that they could monitor players' health and well-being after things like a concussion. They could keep them at the facility with a doctor on site or a club medic person on site monitoring them. So these are things that Wigan do take seriously. It's just obviously this situation hasn't been controlled, and they don't have those things yet in place. They're just things that to be a league leader in off the field care. That's something that they would look into as a potential investment in the future. Now, that would stop this, wouldn't it? He'd be on the facility.
It would do if individual players took responsibility. And as you rightly said to start with, the best thing he could have done, is not gone out. But if he had gone out, then, as you say, there's plenty of taxis or Ubers out there for you. So that kind of, it's just.
I don't know if Uber's in Wigan.
Are they not? All right, okay. Sorry. That's big city expectations from me. But yeah, no. I mean, it's okay, a local taxi firm. But do you know what I mean? There's plenty of other options out there. And as you say, that comes down to an individual poor decision that could obviously have very serious consequences in terms of.
It's a succession of poor decisions, isn't it? Potentially going out when you've been injured during a game, drinking when you've suffered a concussion, and then getting behind the wheel when you've had no doubt some painkillers potentially as well. If you've
probably probably right mix of stuff. So yes, silly boy.
What next for him, I don't know, but what next for Wigan? We need to start laying down the law. We could get called hypocrites because we've treated some players differently to others, and no doubt that goes on throughout the sporting world and always has done and always will do. And Tally Matautai may be someone that Wigan were thinking is surplus to requirements going forward, as opposed to someone like Zach Hardacre, who was a key signing for the season ahead. So there is, some people do get treated differently, and I don't necessarily want that to be the case. But then there's other factors you have to weigh up in between what one person did and what another person did, isn't there? And like I say, a 31-year-old family man who's previously had a drink driving conviction, who should know better.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm guessing it's a different jurisdiction, so maybe that can't be taken into account. But yeah, it's not. From it's
the
not
club's
a good look.
Perspective, though, when you're doing it, but the club need to draw a line. We can't keep having people question the culture of the club, because I know that Chris Radlinski is an incredibly honest and honourable man, and this sort of stuff hurts him. But his credibility gets questioned when this sort of stuff happens. The ship that he is steering as the CEO of the organisation gets questioned, and you can understand why fans are questioning it, why outside people are questioning it. Completely understand why people are questioning the likes of Radlinski, Lennigan, maybe Adrian Lamb as well to a lesser extent, but that's why we've got to come up with a way of realigning our procedures as a club with behaviour like this.
Sometimes because this it feels like a cultural issue, and sometimes that isn't the fault of individuals. That's the fault of a system when it works together, without getting too organisational development on you.
Yeah.
It's about the way that a system works together, rather than calling into question individuals like Radlinski's, character or anything like that, because sometimes it's not about that. Sometimes good people can do bad things when they work together, and I'm sure the reasons behind this.
He's a good person. He's a good person.
Yeah.
He's done a bad thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Moving on.
Former England and Great Britain Rugby League scrum half Sean Long has moved to Rugby Union by leaving St Helens to join Harlequins as assistant coach. The 42-year-old left a similar role with Super League leaders St Helens to coach Harlequins attack. Wigan-born Long won every major club honour in his rugby league career, spent mostly with Saints. I think the only times he won stuff was at Saints, I think. A sort of sideline to this, former Halifax boss Richard Marshall has been named as Sean Long's successor as assistant coach at St Helens. Marshall, 43, left Halifax earlier in the season after 4.5 years in charge. Good for Richard Marshall that he gets a proper chance at Super League to sort of learn a bit more, and under arguably the best performing, well, or not arguably, I suppose, regular season wise, the best performing coach in the competition under Justin Holbrook. Sean Long, it's a sad loss. His attacking influence has been seen on the St Helens side, but also I think on the Salford side of 6-7 years ago as well. I think it's a loss to our game. Hopefully he learns some new stuff and then comes back.
Yeah, obviously, I think I'd prefer to. I'd obviously focus on it's an opportunity for Marshall, isn't it? I think as well, to step into a role. I think it's a good opportunity for him. So yeah, hopefully he can make the most of that and look to step up to that Super League coaching gig, which I'm sure he'll be after in a couple of years' time.
For sure. And if he does well at Saints and impresses the people at Saints, Holbrook ain't going to be around there forever, you wouldn't suspect.
No.
If he manages to get them over that line and win a big game, then people will take him seriously in other parts of the world. Okay, Hull KR hour now. So we'll start with utility back Craig Hall. This one it'll please Tom Andrews, but it'll definitely please our fellow co-host Tim G, who's the biggest Craig Hall fan going. Craig Hall has agreed a new deal with Hull Kingston Rovers for next season. The 31-year-old, who is in his second spell with the Super League club, has scored 10 tries in 20 games so far this season. Next, Hull KR have signed young back rower Louis Johnson on a 1-month loan deal from Warrington. The 20-year-old made his Super League debut against Wigan last season. He's also spent time on dual reg at Widnes and Rochdale over the last year or so. So that's one signing coming in from Warrington. Another one is Harvey Levett, who's also joined on an initial 1-month loan deal from Warrington to Hull Kingston Rovers. So Harvey Levett, obviously